Hi, I'm Chris Jorstead with thebestarizonahome.com, and I'm here with Shane Tibiatowski from Cardinal Financial today talking about FHA loans. And we're going to talk about what they are, how they work, and how they can benefit you as a buyer. Shane, what's an FHA loan?
FHA loan, Federal Housing Administration loan. Beautiful because you only have to put down 3.5%. Lots of people think they got to put down more money when they're putting money down for a house, buying a house. It's not true. 3.5%, it's backed by the government, and it's very, very protective for you simply because they make sure that that appraiser who is FHA qualified is detailing that house from top to bottom, making sure that everything is done up to the FHA standards, which is a huge benefit for you because you really want to go into a house and, 2 days later, you got to spend X amount of dollars on maybe a new furnace or water heater. So they check everything from top to bottom. But 3.5%, that's a phenomenal down payment.
So an appraiser, let's talk about that, and we'll get more into that on another video called The Process of Financing, exactly how the appraisal works. But that individual actually represents the bank, essentially, and they're going to go out and look at the house. And
Correct.
So you're saying that that appraiser actually generally does a more thorough job than what a different kind of loan would?
Appraisers do thorough jobs to begin with, no matter what type, but there's more criteria in that appraisal process that they have to abide by.
I gotcha.
So different things over the years that have probably come up that the government, they don't want somebody to get into a home and next thing you know, they've got to pay $5,000 for something, they can't pay it, or they try to pay it and then all of a sudden they can't pay their mortgage payment because they had to get this done, and then they default on a loan. So they're just very, very protective when it comes to making sure that everything is working and the life of something is well known. It has to pass that standard so that people are in a sound home.
So just so I can kind of explain too, and correct me if I'm wrong. So what happened here is you have the government entity known as HUD, right? The Housing Urban Development.
Yep.
So they've stepped in and essentially told the banks, hey, listen, we'll let you give out these loans at a really low down payment, 3.5%. And that's 3.5% of the total purchase price.
Correct.
And also we'll step in and do some down payment assistance, right?
Yep.
So they're gonna step in and help. But we wanna make sure that these homes are up to par.
Correct.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yep.
So now down payment assistance.
Down payment assistance, that's another a beautiful thing that a lot of people hear about but don't know much about it. It's not really difficult as far as to qualify for. There's different standards where depending upon how much money you make or don't make, debt to income ratio plays a part. On an FHA loan, if you do not go through the down payment assistance program, your debt to income ratio can actually go up to 56.9%.
Okay.
Okay. So, but that means that you're coming in with that 3.5% out of your own pocket. You can get a gift from a family member for that, but if you decide that you want to use the funds from Arizona Housing, then you are capped at 50% debt to income ratio.
Okay, 6% difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so just out of curiosity then, what, generally speaking, is there kind of a percentage or kind of like how much are closing costs? And I know they can vary huge, but.
It depends upon, this is such a great area because taxes are so low in a lot of areas. And so when you're looking at having to have title fees, taking care of taxes and insurance, and then depending upon what the lender charges, you're probably talking, let's say, on an average, anywhere from a low of $4,000 to probably a high of $6,500.
Okay.
So just depending upon what they're collecting for, and what I mean by that is the collecting part is what part of town are you living in, how much are your taxes, and for the time of year that you're buying, how many months are they collecting for?
Right, and so down payment assistance can come in and actually help you with that.
It can be handy.
Those closing costs, yeah.
Well, and that's the cool thing is that Arizona has 3% down payment, 4%, and 5%. So think about it. If you go in, and they're all varied by, if you take 3%, you're gonna have the best interest rate. Take 4%, interest rate's a little bit higher.
Okay.
Take 5%, interest rate's a little bit higher. But it also depends upon what you need. If the payment falls within what you can afford, but yet you're getting 3.5% down as far as for down payment, and that 1.5% is covering your closing costs.
That makes sense.
That's a beautiful world.
Yeah, okay. Another term that I hear a lot with, and this may be for other loans as well, but PMI?
Private mortgage insurance?
Yeah, is that something that comes along with just FHA loans, or?
So with FHA loans, you're gonna have the mortgage insurance. If you put down the 3.5%, you have it for life, the life of the loan. If you refinance out of that, say into a conventional loan, and you don't need mortgage insurance anymore, then that's gone. If you put down 10% or 20%, then obviously it's going to be less. It'll be based off of typical what a conventional loan is, and typically that's like 11 years. That's not how it's set in parameters within the lender itself, but can last up to there, because in a normal market, when they say normal, 78% debt to or loan to value, that mortgage insurance drops off.
Okay.
On a conventional
So once
loan.
you've paid up to 70% of it, essentially.
79.
79%.
Or 78.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry about
78%.
that.
No, I gotcha. Okay. So if you were to look at that though, and you're looking at like an FHA loan and you wanted to refinance to get rid of that PMI later on, is there any allotted period you have to keep that FHA loan? Or
1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
So you keep the FHA loan for 1 year, you're paying the PMI for 1 year, and then you're able to refinance into something.
Caveat though on that.
Yeah.
If you did the Arizona down payment, then you're into that loan for a specific amount of time. If you refinance or sell it, you're going to pay back what they gave you.
Oh, I see.
But it's prorated every year.
Okay.
And so you want to make sure that you're asking those questions. So a lot of times what ends up happening is death in the family, and they can't afford it on their own, so they're going to have to sell it. They move if the company's not going to help, and they have to sell it because they're taking a better job. So these types of things, and that's where it's best to ask the lender these questions, so that way they know exactly what they're dealing with when.
Sort of like going to the doctor. You have to be asking questions and let them know what your financial goals are and what you want to do. So yeah, I get that.
Do you want to keep your kidney or? So you just want to make sure that you're asking questions. Never assume anything, and always ask for as much information as you possibly can.
And the same thing when you're purchasing a house with your realtor. Ask them every question in the world and make sure you get a good response. And that way you know you're successful when you're going in to purchase something. Let me ask you one last question.
Okay.
So we're looking at homes, and we're FHA. Now you mentioned the appraisal is a little bit more strict.
Yep.
So I actually run into it where people don't like to use FHA loans because of that appraisal.
Right.
What are our options at that point?
You know, options being that, and you're not going to solve the problem for everybody. People like to have loans done, whether it's on the real estate side, on any side of it. They like it as clean as possible and as quick as possible. And it doesn't always work out that way, simply because, you know, maybe you don't have that qualified buyer on the conventional side. You're not getting that. You're just getting buyers that come in that need to do the FHA side. And so, it's one thing to be able to take a look. If you know something, if you do on the disclosure report, and you're saying this you know needs to be done, or we've got this, and you know that on an FHA deal that these things have to be fixed, then it's beneficial to, you know, maybe attack that at the beginning,
right?
And say, hey, you know, this is what it's going to cost. Let's see what this is going to cost and what it's going to take, because this client that wants to buy this house is more invested than what people think. It's not just buying a house. I mean, this is their biggest asset.
Right.
If it's going to take $1,000 to fix all of this stuff, I'm in.
So just to clarify, kind of what that can look like is we could get something under contract and go through the entire process, and the appraiser comes out, which generally takes 2-3 weeks sometimes.
Yeah, at the most.
Yeah. So they'll come out, they'll look at the house, and they may say, well, we need this and this fixed.
Correct.
Because you're an FHA loan and their standards are where they are. So that may essentially hold up the sale of the home.
It can, and so that's where, you know, you guys go back to the drawing board, realtor to realtor, and be able to talk to, right? And talk to their seller, talk to the buyer, and see if they can't come to an agreement.
Right.
The biggest difference is that you might have a borrower that, they would love to be able to go conventional, because there are conventional programs, and we'll get into that later, but you could put just 3% down. But again, it's the criteria that people don't understand is, well, if I can get 3.5% in FHA, why can't I get 3 here? Well, FHA goes up to 50% and 56.9% if you're using the secondary market, where conventional might cut you off right at 45. And that person might be at 48 and you can't get it approved, but you can FHA. And so it's just kind of a double-edged sword.
So FHA, great program,
Awesome.
great for buyers, saves them a lot of money.
Yep.
However, comes with a few caveats.
Yep.
It might be slightly problematic during the appraisal.
Yep.
There are some holdups in the way that the financing may come down the road for PMI. Paying back the down payment assistance if you use that program.
Right.
Just stuff to be aware of and make sure we're communicating.
But at the same time, I mean, you know, as awesome as a realtor you are, you help your well, it's true, but you help your sellers when they're looking at that. If when you're going through that and you're doing your disclosure report, you know if you're going to have somebody that's going to come in as an FHA buyer, that this may have to be taken care of.
Right, right.
And if people don't do that and they just assume that this is how it's going to be, then that's where you're going to run into the problems.
Right. Yeah.
So-
and that's something we address right away if we're going to sell. So,
Yep.
but yeah. Anyway, that's summarizing an FHA loan. You always look at the other videos that we have in regards to the different types of loans and the process of the loan, so that way you can know all the information that's out there. Shane, appreciate it so much.
You bet. And again,
Thanks, sir.
ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask questions.